Let's just go ahead and get to our first call, shall we? So let's get to Karen, who is in California. Karen, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Dan.
Hey,
Hi,
Karen.
Courtney.
How's it going? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I talked to you a couple weeks ago, and you said to give you a call back, and we could talk about psychic stuff.
Oh, that's right. Yes. So
Yeah.
just
And guess what guess what I have in my hands right now?
you have some tarot cards, don't you? Tarot cards.
I do.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yes.
I was going to do it. And in fact, Courtney might be interested in this too, because tarot cards have a psychological element to them. And I've been reading them since I was 10. And I was going to do a reading for you or Courtney right online, and you can epistemology me.
Oh, that's so great. That is so awesome. I am super ready.
I'd be
want to do that?
curious. I'd be curious what psychological component you were referring to with the tarot cards.
Yeah, absolutely. And would this be okay with you guys?
Yes, I'm
Yeah,
100%
that
down.
sounds
Are you
really
kidding me? That's amazing. Let's do this.
So as I do it, I will talk about the psychological elements. And I was a complete true believer. And before I get started, Dan, I just wanted to give you a big compliment on your talk with Ocean that was broadcast the day after Thanksgiving, because I spent 26 years as a polytheist priestess. And I did druid stuff, and I was on a heathen Nordic path. And I thought you guys did a terrific job in describing everything and asking questions.
Yeah, so those of you who aren't aware, last week I had Ocean come on, who is a polytheist, also identifies as pagan, heathen, among other things. And I actually had him not as a caller, but as a guest host. And that was one of the proto episodes we did for Truth Wanted. And I wanted to release that as content for last week because it was Thanksgiving break and stuff. And I agree with you. I think it was a really great conversation. And I think it's cool to just kind of talk about that kind of stuff because as far as I know, most of the other shows on this network don't get to talk about that kind of stuff in the depth that we did. And so I'm glad you got to relate to that and hear more about that. But man, Karen, I gotta tell you, I'm excited. You gotta get me a reading here, and we need to talk about this. This is so cool.
We will.
Yeah.
So either you or Courtney decide which one you want to do. Both,
Okay.
but it would probably take longer.
Rock, paper, scissors.
One. I could always. Yeah.
Well, you seem to be really excited about it.
I am really excited, but
I have had tarot.
Tarot. I think tarot is the pronunciation.
Oh yeah, I see
right?
it's
Yeah.
there. I have had a tarot reading when I was in India, so
I've never had it done before,
cool.
but
I think
you are a
might
guest.
have
If it's your call.
No.
You don't want. Okay, if Courtney doesn't want to do it, then I'll go ahead and do it because I gotta tell you, I'm
Have fun.
pumped. Let's do it.
So I want you to think of a question, Dan, and it should be something that is non-trivial or something kind of important to you. And you can either tell me what the question is or not tell me, and I'll do my best to tell you what it is. Now, just to let you know, I never did this for money. I don't do cold reading. This was part of my spiritual path, and all the readings I've given in my whole life have been for free. So this is where I think street epistemology and atheism falls down on reaching people that are into the so-called woo, is that for some of us, this does seem to work. And Courtney, I think it's a psychological thing, but again, we can talk about that later.
Yeah,
so Dan, think of the question.
Okay, so any parameters to this question? Just like any...
it could be any kind of parameters, but it should be non-trivial, like what color socks should I wear on Christmas?
Okay.
You don't want to ask that question.
Okay, so non-trivial, like not what colored socks, but it has to be, okay, this is interesting. I've never been asked to think of a question like this.
She said something kind of important to you, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, something important like something about your family or something about maybe your job or something or your love life.
Okay.
It could be anything like that.
Okay, I have a question in mind then. Okay.
Okay, so now I'm going to shuffle the cards and I am going to try to tap into the weird. The weird is a term in Nordic mythology where everything is considered connected. So like all the stars, the sun, the moon, the earth, and all the people on it, all the creatures on the planet are interconnected in a web of life. And I'm going to try to tap into the weird and see if I can connect to you through this network and see if I can do a reading on your question.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you, normally I would have you touch the cards and you cut the cards, but you're not here, so you're going to tell me how many piles should I cut the cards into?
I'll touch it with my mind, but let's go ahead and say 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good Nordic number. 3 wishes, 3, all 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first card I'm dealing out is and I'm sorry you can't see it. I'll take a photograph for you and send it to you later.
Okay.
The first card I'm dealing out is the question card. And the card that covers it is the one that's kind of hiding the situation a little. The next card is going to be the card that crosses the situation. And the reading that I'm doing is called the Celtic Cross method. Okay, and then there's a past, a present, a near future, a far future. Wow, you got some heavy cards in here. And then there's the self, the surroundings, the hopes and fears, and the outcome. And if the outcome is a major arcana, which it is, I can stop there. If it wasn't, I would deal till I got a major arcana. Okay, so the first card that I see here for your question, I actually have the Ice Queen here. So this is like the Priestess of Swords, and the picture I'm seeing is a very cold woman who is sending out an owl of wisdom. Okay. Now, these are all done with pictures, and this is what I was trying to tell you, Courtney, about it being psychological. These are kind of like Rorschach tests where you look at them and you see what. Right. But a lot of people believe that the spirits and the gods help in this sort of thing. So, and since I'm connecting through the weird, you can actually be a secular pagan, and I'm not one, and I'm not even a pagan anymore. But earlier today, I did a secular reading, and it actually worked. So there you go. So I don't know if your question. Did you want to tell me a question, or you want me to just keep going, Dan?
I want you to keep going, and I don't want you to see if you can even get anywhere close to what I'm thinking of.
Okay, you're on. All right. So normally, when getting back to the psychological component again, even though I did not do cold reading, when the person was there with me, I could see the expressions on their face. Now, your expressions are delayed. I'm looking at you right now on my iPad, and it's delayed, so I have no idea what this is about. And, Courtney, for you, I did read an article about divination being done in Japan, and they said that the Japanese love to get readings because it was a way of having socially acceptable psychology. So, in other words, a Japanese person might not go to a counselor, but they would go to a tarot reader or someone else doing palmistry or something like that.
Okay.
So, so I got this woman here. So it would indicate that there is a strong woman in your circle, and a priestess indicates she is a religious person. Okay. She is a religious person, but she's kind of on the cold side. It's not that she's mean, but she's just very, very. What's the term I'm wanting to use? She's just very irrational. Okay. Now. This is covered by the daughter of swords. That's interesting. So there might be a family member, a daughter or a cousin or a niece who's kind of fighting against this woman and just feels really frustrated about. Maybe this is I can see delayed motion, so maybe this is referring to not exactly directly to Dan. I don't know. Anyway, she's fighting against having a little bit of an argument. But what she's actually fighting against is more of her own imagination take on what's happening as to what is opposed to as what is actually happening. And she feels like she has to sacrifice something. She's not real happy about that. Okay. Then crossing the question, did you want to ask a question?
Do you have one more card you got to read, right? And then you asked me about that.
I have a lot of cards, so just jump in and ask any questions you want.
Okay.
If you want, I'll try to speed it up to give you a general overview.
Gosh, it's so much information. I don't know how. I mean, obviously you've practiced at this and you're keeping all this stuff in your head. I would have a hard time. I'd look at the card and I'd probably be like, it's some lady. I don't know. She's doing a thing like.
Check your encyclopedia.
I'm wondering, so when people are studying this stuff, is this something that you're actively having to practice so you can come up with the right kinds of predictions, or what does that even look like to even get all this information?
Okay, well, like I said, I've been doing this since I was 10. Mm-hmm. That means I've been doing this for over half a century. That's a long time. But what happens is while I'm reading the cards, the person sitting across, I figured this out because, as you know, I'm now an atheist and I don't believe in this stuff. But as I'm reading the cards, I am actually interacting with the person, and they will do kind of like what happens on John Edward, where, oh, yeah, that must be my aunt, or that must be my cousin, or something like that.
So you're waiting for me to give you some clues.
Right.
And you...
No, I'm really not.
Okay.
You would volunteer it yourself if you really believed it, okay? But the fact that you're not giving me clues doesn't usually affect it, because what's happening is, when I get, let's just say you don't recognize it, then I said, well, maybe this is the anima, the part of your inner self, your female self that feels this way. Right. You were once religious, and then now you're not. Yeah, you see how it works? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, okay. But you mentioned that you don't do cold reading, but to me that does sound like cold reading, just because you're presenting a certain I guess, situation where you're posing questions and you're presenting ideas and then seeing the reaction you get back. And that by definition is cold reading, where you're sort of reading the response and gauging what you're saying in order to see if you're on the right track and sort of like go on that tangent. And I don't know how much of that is conscious by true believers, but if someone isn't a true believer in what they're doing, that's definitely a technique that's used in not only this venue, but also, sales and any sort of...
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. I agree with you. The reason I wasn't calling it cold reading is that there's two different kinds of tarot card readings. One is fortune telling, where you sit there and you tell somebody what's going to happen to them. But the one that's being used on the spiritual path is done in conjunction with the person who wants the reading. So the theory is, because they're not paying money, so they want something out of it. Everybody wants something out of something. So they're not trying to, pay for something and then have the reading done. They're asking for help. And this is a type of counseling, just like I was commenting on the Japan thing. Mm-hmm. Now, I have done these with no feedback whatsoever and was later told it was accurate. So I don't know what was happening there.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things that could be going on there. There's the pattern-seeking nature that we humans have of trying to make sense of random things that happen and reading into ambiguous information like horoscopes or seeing an agency there. To where you read a horoscope, it could be a random one, but you could still kind of see yourself in there, and they're written on purpose to be kind of vague and fit a lot of people. But the thing that worries me about it being used as counseling is I'm assuming that a tarot card reader isn't a licensed counselor. And so if there's a legitimate problem that is needing to be addressed in someone's life, not only are they coming to this in, as opposed to seeking an actual counselor who could give them some techniques to sort of figure out their own psychology or figure out a solution to what they're dealing with. But the other side of that is that if they do find a solution, it's not, it's sort of despite the ambiguous nature of this, that it can help them to get to their own conclusion, but it's not dealing with the problem or a real solution directly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree with you. And that's the reason why these things are so dangerous and why I myself had a lot of problems. Dan will tell, if he remembers, he'll tell you that I was having problems with some of these healers that were not really healing at all. But I do want to address something important. Why people come to tarot card readers and alternative healers, I don't know about the rest of the country, but I do know as far as here, like let's say I needed a counselor, it would take weeks for me to get on to talk to a counselor here in California with my HMO. And it would be very expensive. Now, tarot card readers generally have been charging in this area $60 an hour. That's $1 a minute. But going to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist would be $180 plus. And so some people come to tarot card readers because by the time they get to see psychologists, they've already had their crisis and are probably just wallowing in it. Now, the reason I'm pointing this out is that you both know a lot of people go to religion and spirituality for comfort when they can't get it where they're supposed to get it. And I know that's not our problem to solve this issue, but I just want to point out why it happens. It's a two-pronged problem. It's not just the woo, but it's also not being able to get the help through the medical system.
Right. Yeah. I just would worry about people using it as not entertainment, but using it as an actual tool for mental health. Because yeah, like it does cost less and it takes less time, but it's not as helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
No, it isn't.
It's really scary.
$60 an hour.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, to me, that's like a massage, or really, I guess I think some people would consider it like you're supposed to consider gambling in Vegas. It's like entertainment. You're paying for entertainment.
Well, Karen, I want you to keep up with this reading here, and let's see where we can go from here. But gosh, maybe you need to guest host Truth Wanted sometime, because it sounds like you know a lot about this topic, and I'd love to pick your brain on this more. But let's go ahead and finish this reading up, because I'm antsy about this. I need to know. I need to know about me and what's going on. I know you have the power.
Right,
so
I did think I did. Okay, so I'm going to go on. I'm going to try to abbreviate it, because they're, like you said, there is a lot. And when people do these readings, they usually do last about an hour. And I know we don't want to go to that route.
Oh yeah, so no, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. We do have other callers, but that would be cool.
That's right.
Maybe someday we can dedicate an episode to it, though. That'd be interesting.
So crossing the question is a card of community, at least the way I read it. It's the 10 of Cups, and there's people that are very happy. They're joining in worshiping together. And it doesn't necessarily have to be worship, but if it's in regards to the question, it would have something to do with the fact that maybe this cold woman is not really participating in the community as a group, and that's something she might want to look at, or if that's part of you. And I don't see you as being unsocial, so I don't think it would have anything to do with you. In the past, I see that there was a lot of love and tenderness. This is the 6 of discs between two individuals. And I see that as the family expanded, again, I'm just sort of reading blind here. I'm not looking at you. I'm just telling you what the cards say. As the family expanded, there were a lot of changes that were going on, and it led to a sort of change within the dynamic of the colder woman, her niece, and the community. And that was the Death card, so that's a pretty significant card. And then the more far, and that's the present. So the present feels like a kind of death. And the outcome card, or not the outcome card, but the farther future, I see 3 people fighting with swords. So they're pretty unhappy that this dynamic has changed within the community. Now, of course, this could apply to anybody now that I'm thinking about it, but this, I'm just telling you what the cards say. And also just want to make a comment that a lot of the tarot cards are based upon a magical order called the Golden Dawn, and they did purposely try to make the cards archetypal, which is things that people go through all the time. Then I'm just going to give you the last 4 cards briefly. The next is the Priestess of Cups, and that is a very warm, loving woman who maybe is sort of leading the questioner, you, away from this cold background that did not really fit your particular lifestyle or needs or wants. The second of discs is now that's the self card. So the second of discs is the surroundings card. Again, that's a 2, like a lot of the numbers in here. And 2 would be like a significant number of. I see technology in this. So the surroundings is a technical environment, but I see that you are trying to maintain that relationship with the family or the community, and you're doing a very good job of it. And the surroundings with the hopes and fears is the crone. The crone is an old woman, and on this card, she has the choice of 3 different paths. So this means that you might have some opportunities where you hope to have opportunities where you have more things that you can do going forward, but you hope that you won't be stuck with the decision-making process. And then the outcome is the Star, which is probably the best card you can get in a tarot reading, meaning that everything's going to work out fine. that you have strength and you will be able to handle the situation with all these different people that are causing conflict. And you may not be able to solve everyone's problems, but your problem will be, in the end, solved by your own consciousness and volition. And that's it.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so is this the part where I revealed to you what the question was at the beginning, or?
Yeah, if you want to. If
Okay.
you want to. See, since this is a spiritual reading, or technically it's supposed to be a spiritual reading, you could just keep it to yourself and mull it over. But if you want to reveal the question, go ahead and let's see how accurate or inaccurate I was.
Okay. My question was, why did my brother choose to go to Baylor University of all universities? That was my question. So it seemed like for half of that, it almost didn't really, at least the first half, it seemed didn't really apply because you were kind of talking about me, and it was like, well, I was more thinking about my brother. So maybe I asked the question wrong. Maybe it was supposed to be more about me. I don't know, but
No.
But
No, it's the question is right.
Okay.
The question is right. And if you had been here and if you had revealed that to me, I would have said that this young woman was actually your brother and he was trying to get away from home. Okay.
Okay.
But since you didn't, and if you had really been into it, you might have actually thought that. But the real bottom line is these don't work, okay? They might work great. They might. And I really believe they did for a long time, and I kept trying to make them work. I've had terrible tarot card readings. I've had readings where one woman told me that I worked, she told me that I worked with children in social work. Well, I didn't. I worked in IT. I worked with computers. I had nothing to do with that. And I had another reading where one woman, it was a palmistry reading. She kept insisting I had a son. I've never had children, so it's not possible for me to have a son.
Oh, wow.
So her whole reading was based on that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So even then, that's me also trying to make the reading work. I was like, well, maybe I should have asked a different question, right? So like that just naturally happens when you're looking into these things, because I guess humans like to make patterns and they like to figure stuff out. And
and like making decisions is hard.
Yeah, and like Karen was saying, the more you actually believe in this this technique, the more you're going to want it to work and to want to help the person who's reading, get a sense of what you're trying to accomplish, and you want to learn from them, and you want to get as much information from the cards as you can, so you're going to participate as fully as you can. So because of that, you're going to be looking for things that match what you're seeking. And so you're going to read into anything that you can to be that advice that you want to see, which, so as Karen was saying, the psychological things at work, definitely confirmation bias, definitely, our pattern-seeking psychology, and just, also that sense of like community of wanting to not disappoint the person that's reading you as well.
Yeah.
If you want it to be true and you want them to help you in this search that you're on, then you want them to be right and you want them to have something valid to say.
That's so true. And that last part you said, I want to emphasize, you want to preserve that sense of community, and you want that reading to be right, and you don't want to offend the person giving you that reading. Even people who are skeptical, I find you can come into a conversation like that, and naturally you want to help out the reading out, help to see where it goes and stuff. And it's so interesting how, how our kindness can be taken advantage of in that way. Because I know a lot of people who can read into things that aren't really there because they want to, build the kind of narrative structure to their lives maybe, and try to see that there's a grand design or vision going on, and there's curtains being pulled behind the scenes. But wow, that's so fascinating. Karen, I'm so glad you got to call and do that. That was really, really cool. How did that feel doing that again? Did you feel like you were bringing up good or bad memories, or is this something that you could just do off the fly?
Well, I'm so practiced at it that I even did it for a group of atheists at the Reason Center here in Sacramento. It's just so easy. But I'm sad. I'm sad because I miss my religion. But I'm also happy that I'm no longer a prisoner of these bad ideas. And part of the reason I'm calling you and why I try to call in is I really would like to let people know that paying $60 for someone for a reading is really not a great way to spend your money for entertainment. It would be better to spend $10 on a movie. And I agree with what
$10 on a Patreon donation, maybe. Just putting that out.
Oh yeah, $10 on a Patreon donation for this show. And I agree with Courtney. This is really dangerous. If someone's feeling depressed and suicidal, the last thing they should be doing is going to a tarot card reading. That is not going to help at all. I mean, they might feel good for a while, but that person is not a licensed therapist.
Yeah, there's always better ways to talk about these kinds of beliefs, and there's just always going to be better ways to find the truth to some extent, right? I mean, like, I had to agree with you. The things that I see where people get tricked into these crazy ideas, or what's crazy from our perspective, seems very real to the person who, you know, is believing these kinds of things. So it's hard to have these conversations, and it's hard to tell people, hey, this is actually like wrong, because there's these structures in our mind that get built up that can be shattered by all this. And so you're really hitting at the heart of why I started Truth Wanted in the first place. It's okay, let's figure out ways we can talk about this and see like why we believe and why we don't believe in the things that we believe and don't believe. And I'm glad that you have kind of woken up to this yourself, and you've kind of gone through this transformation. It made for an excellent call, and it sounds like you're helping other people out in your life too. So it's really awesome. Really, really awesome.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have to let you go so we can get to some other callers. But Karen, if you ever want to call again and do some other kinds of fancy psychic tricks that you know of, I'd be happy to try it. I mean, that was really fun.
Yeah. If I'm here, we can analyze.
Okay, awesome.
We can analyze it all out.
For sure.
That sounds wonderful. And you take care of yourselves now. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well.